like country music. There, I said it. At me, fight me. I don't care. Don't like it. Hey guys, it's your girl Aisha, aka geekxxchic, and I'm back with another review to The Flash. This is the review of episode 14, which was called Subject 9. And yeah, like the title said, and like I predicted, it was about the 9th bus meta that we would be introduced to, who is the character name of the Fiddler. Yeah, this episode was okay for me. I mean, we need to see all the metas. We have to see, I mean, at the beginning of this season, not the beginning, but the earlier part of the season, we were shown that at some point we were going to see all the metas that were on the bus, and obviously we get a chance to see their abilities. But so this episode I wouldn't call necessarily filler, because we did need to see who this meta is, and there are still 3 left after this. They need to kind of move the whole bus meta and DaVoe storyline along a little bit more, because we definitely had a stall in that whole storyline while Barry was in prison. This episode, I mean, there's a couple of theories that I had about DaVoe that I think came out quite nicely. I was wondering about whether or not the fact that DaVoe has all these different consciousnesses in his, you know, all going on at the same time. Like, his brain, when it was just him, was already depleting his body of resources just to be able to function. So now that he's taken on the consciousnesses of now 9 people, that's 10 consciousnesses that his, you know, that any given body is now having to manage. With all that and energy and him trying to pull from that. So it's like his brain's actually doing like 9 times the work, if that seems or makes sense. So I was kind of wondering whether or not it would actually have an adverse effect on whatever host body he ended up in, and I was right. We see that even though he's only been in Becky's body for, I guess we can basically estimate maybe a couple of days or weeks, he's already feeling the physical effects, and his body deterioration is going like crazy. So that makes sense in the, obviously, the overall timeline of the show. Like, we have to have something that's going to accelerate the need for DaVoe to get his plan in motion, because we've heard about this plan since pretty much episode 5 or 6, and we're already on episode 14. So we really need to see, like, what is this enlightening? What is the point? Why is DaVoe still going after these metas, and what is his plan? So of course, the scariest thing is that he's got all these powers now. Like, it's insane to think that he's basically technically invulnerable. So most, like, I mean, because most of Team Flash's stuff that isn't their actual powers is tech, right? Cisco's tech, the inventions that Cisco and Harry come up with, but they're all technology. If they have any type of technological advancements, apparently Kilgore can hack it. And they thought it had to be an internet thing, but it isn't. It just has to be a piece of tech, and apparently Kilgore can hack or control it. So that's a huge disadvantage for Team Flash. Dominic, we learned, and I'm glad I guessed that in the episode, apparently it was not just a passive mind reading ability. He can also, he called it infect a mind, but apparently he can, like, inflict strokes and other types of brain issues on hosts. So clearly that's a huge disadvantage again to Team Flash, and I guess that must be, actually, let's come back to, we had a moment in the episode where Cisco was vibing Fiddler, and DaVoe arrived, and DaVoe saw Cisco or sensed him immediately. And remember, in the beginning of the season, we saw that when Cisco tried to vibe the items of DaVoe's, he kept getting these implanted memories, is what I believe them to be, like, you know, the macaroni and cheese and stuff, but nothing else. He couldn't see anything else about DaVoe but what DaVoe clearly wanted him to see. So that was before DaVoe absorbed the consciousnesses, so that's something he can do. And I'm just kind of wondering, like, is it really just because his brain is so souped up that he's able to sense Cisco when he's vibing? Or at least maybe sense the wavelength? Because Cisco's whole power, if I remember how it was described, is that he gets onto these frequencies or vibrations, and he's able to use that to, you know, see different dimensions, different time, anything in the time and space continuum, basically. So I'm assuming that DaVoe's brain is just so fully developed that he's able to pick up on that spectrum. as well as Cisco, and that's why he's able to see him and conversely block him. Like, I'm still trying to figure out how he pushes Cisco out like that and actually hurts him, right? Because both times that he did that, the first time he did it to Cisco, Cisco wasn't able to vibe for a while afterwards. And in this episode, we saw him, you know, holding his head like he had a headache and stuff. So whatever it is, it's actually hitting Cisco's brain and potentially his vibe capability for some time, and that's really scary. I really want to know why. I have questions. I enjoyed seeing the reference to the neural inhibitor. As soon as Harry said that, I didn't even think of like beforehand. As soon as he said it, I was like, we heard that last season. And that makes me happy that, you know, Team Flash is finally on track to potentially figuring out how to take DaVoe down. I do with the whole, whenever you have anything where you have to do with time and space and manipulating all that, the geek in me also has to wonder if DaVoe has, you know, been watching Team Flash this closely, then he should have known what happened with Savitar, which means he likely also knows that in a timeline, he was taken out by a neural inhibitor. So I'm thinking that even though that may seem like it's the path to the right thing, maybe the neural inhibitor is not going to work this time around because now DaVoe knows about it and, you know, probably did everything he could to find out about it and figure out a way to stop it from ever happening. And now we know for sure, we got confirmation in this episode as well from Cisco that the chair, something within the chair is able to manipulate time and space much like speedsters do, and he's going to a pocket dimension, which I think we all kind of figured or thought. I think I mentioned it quite a few episodes ago that he's clearly going someplace that's like an alternate dimension or something. And I can't remember the episode. The episode where DaVoe was, you know, feeling all poor me when he was still in his old body and he fell out of his chair. And Marlies kept saying like, you know, let me help you. It's not so bad. And he's like, you should use the time space something. He named some sort of device. He's like, you should do that and go back to before you ever met me. Because, you know, he's feeling all sorry for himself. But anyways, that seemingly throwaway phrase, I picked up on, okay, there's a device that manipulates time and space that they've already created or figured out. So we just got confirmation in this episode via Cisco that it exists and that that's how DaVoe is where DaVoe is going, that is untouchable by this world, so to speak. And that tells me that the only way to get to it, outside of the chair, of course, it's got to be Cisco, potentially Gypsy, her father, and obviously Barry, like, or any other speedster, because those are the only ones who can go through, like, can create portals or go to other dimensions. But I think it is going to come down to breachers. So I think Cisco and Gypsy and her dad, who I cannot remember the name they gave him in this show, they're all, somehow I feel like they're going to have their powers combined to find a way into this pocket dimension to finally potentially get the jump on DaVoe. So I thought that was I'm just glad we got that confirmation from Cisco. Tracking him there, obviously, you know, we heard Barry get a little snarky about tracking DaVoe to this pocket dimension, but I think seeing what we saw with, you know, Cisco being tossed out of DaVoe's consciousness, I guess you can say, it's not going to be easy, and clearly DaVoe would have thought of protecting that dimension against being vibed. Outside of that, I don't know, the character interactions were kind of mediocre for me in this episode. You know, I'm not surprised to see Barry with the fire lit under him. You know, he literally couldn't save any of the people in the prison because he had the meta inhibitor on his leg there at the prison, but in his mind, you know, he saw people that he should have been able to help that he wasn't able to help. And you know, we know Barry, right? This is his MO. He beats himself up about failing in these types of scenarios, even though he didn't really fail, it wasn't his fault. But you know, he beats himself up and he really wants to make sure that nobody else has to die because of him not being as prepared as possible. And I mean, I love that Team Flash is really starting to, as I mentioned a few episodes ago, Team Flash needs to start thinking differently. They can't go the same way they always have. They really do have to change up their MO because the Thinker knows how they act. So they have to act atypically to the way that they normally do, at least in some scenarios, to stay one step ahead of him and also to keep him guessing. But the rest of the interactions, the whole thing between Ralph and Izzy was just, I really wasn't interested, and the main reason being that, like, it didn't feel authentic. I mean, and that's why, I was a little bit snarky in the video, but I'm like, well, if you knew her for 24 hours, like, you barely know this woman, just because she flirted with you, like, I'm not willing to believe you're gonna sit there and be crying the blues over a girl you didn't even, like, have more than 2 conversations with. Right? I get it, you liked her, and of course, I'm not saying that it wasn't sad for her to be killed, within hours of meeting her, but it just didn't feel like, I don't know, it just felt like they tried to make the moment deeper than it was, and so I wasn't really feeling it. I guess the only main other things that we got were, as far as DaVoe was concerned, outside of, knowing that this body jumping is deteriorating, each time, but also the fact that, Marlize made a very, I don't know, I keep wanting to call her Charlize, I'm so sorry. The other thing that Marlize brought up was the fact that potentially he is losing, or that his neural function is being affected by the transmissions, the multiple transmissions, especially in such a short time. And I'm also thinking the fact that while DaVoe's brain may be mutated and augmented, the people he's absorbing are not. They're just plain old people with plain old brains. Right? So I feel like maybe all these consciousnesses are actually adversely affecting his consciousness, in the sense of they're just normal brains and his brain is the only one that isn't. And with them being the majority, it's very possible that DaVoe is actually becoming dumber or less intelligent just by all of this, which to me is sweet comeuppance. But I thought was the only other thing I thought was interesting. We're definitely seeing DaVoe be way more erratic and way more emotional. Beginning of the season, he was very calculated, he was very calm. We actually saw him be a little bit sweet and emotional towards his wife, but now, completely different side of the spectrum. He's irrational, he's erratic, he's killing people he doesn't need to kill, he's drugging his wife, he's getting snarky and actually arrogant with the Flash and Team Flash. So these are all good things for our heroes, because that means that DaVoe is losing his grip. And, Barry told him at the prison, or sorry, at the jailhouse at the courthouse before he was charged, he told DaVoe, like, you're gonna trip up at some point. Like, every villain who's thought he could outsmart me eventually makes a mistake. When that happens, we're gonna pounce, and we're getting into that territory where DaVoe is about to make a mistake. He's getting sloppy, and that's what we need, right? Because it's true, as it stands, Team Flash can't outthink him. But if he stops being that cool, calm, rational person, then he's just going to become a plain old human with ragey emotions that make you act stupid. That's pretty much all I got from this episode. Like I said, it wasn't one of my favorites, but it was still entertaining and it had its moments, and I do think that it did move the plot forward, so that's why I'm saying it's not like a throwaway episode. But overall, I feel like a lot of the other tones of it were kind of meh. I just feel like we could have better utilized Izzy's interaction with the crew. What did you guys think of this episode? Do you feel like this kind of had a weird kind of vibe to it? Maybe not quite the same as what we're used to? Or am I just tripping? Or did you think it was great? Also, what did you think about, what are you thinking about DaVoe's plan? Like, do any of you have any idea where this plan might be going? Why he's so interested in collecting all these powers? What is the point of it all? I still cannot figure this out, even with the puzzle pieces that have been dropped for us. Maybe I'm missing something. Please leave your comments below. Let me know what you're thinking. And if you like this video, guys, I'd love it if you click that like button. If you want to see more from this geeky face, please click subscribe. Until next time, see ya.